my yeah, there we go. Share screen with your audience. Right, click that. Let's go and window, please. Nope. Window. Yeah. Oh, it's only just get well, I'm just gonna share that. Okay, cool. Right. I'm live on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. How are you doing? I hope everyone is well. And this is a quick thing. Before I get started, I'm just going to actually um I'm gonna just do I discussed with LinkedIn. So I'm gonna say sorry. Sorry to all who joined my live stream and LinkedIn crapped out my stream and didn't allow me to restart. Most of all, sorry to me for putting a scrap of faith into LinkedIn to actually deliver on an experience they claim to deliver and always seem to fall short. Cool. Let's add in a piece of media here, which is just me writing on a piece of on my whiteboard. Fuck LinkedIn. There we go. Post. I think that's justified. You know, that's my customer feedback. Um, absolutely outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. So let's kind of go back to YouTube and let's get this going. Let's get let's get the show on the road, baby. Okay, the art of vibe coding. How to build apps when you don't know how to build apps. All right, that's what we're talking about here. And a bit about me, real quick. My head's in the way, but anyway, my name's Don Maurice. I'm founder at Chuff Coaching. I coach software developers and engineers in all the things outside of writing the code so that they can monetize their projects. So I use my 5 years of working with startups. I'm currently head of product of another startup. I've had over a decade in tech and a history of working with unicorns. And I take all that knowledge of high growth in product and go to market to help fill in the blanks so that software developers can become founders. And my clients are super happy. 5 of them last year managed to get paid users into their apps, and one of them got funded. So happy days. So, what is vibe coding? Whoops, go away, Mac. So, what is vibe coding? Really, what it comes down to is two things. One, what is an app? And two, what is AI? So, what is an application and how does it work on my device? And what is AI? And well, what is a large language model? What are these things? So, first of all, an app, if you're on a Mac, you can go to any application, you can right click it, and you can say, show package contents. And when you do that, you will get a view similar to what I've got on my page here, and it will have a whole bunch of files. And in those files is a whole bunch of text. And that's all an application is a bunch of files with a bunch of text in it. And the device itself works out what that text and those files mean, and then you get your application. So when a software developer or engineer is doing the work of engineering software, what they're doing effectively is taking those files and saying, okay, cool, I'm going to grab those files or start a new project to create new files. And then what they're going to do is they're going to add text, they're going to change text, they're going to delete text, and that fundamentally changes the functionality of the application. And then once they've done that, they will upload those files, and that's ready for you to download onto your device. And that is a release or an update. And now you have that new functionality. That's an app. Cool. Let's talk about what is an AI, or more specifically, what is a large language model. Fundamentally, it's a word predictor, right? It's a statistical model that just goes, cool, I'm just going to predict words. That's all I'm going to do. I have looked at so many words in so many different contexts, in so many different domains, in order to get to a point of saying, okay, well, I can kind of predict those words because I've looked at all the words. So that's what I'm going to do. And the way that that works is that you input a piece of, you give it an input, which is a block of text, which is in natural language. It goes through the statistical model. So it's like rolling a bunch of dice, and it says, okay, cool. Given this bunch of words, what statistically is the most likely words to come out of this? And that's what it gives you as an output. It is just a bunch of text that is contextual to the prompt that you gave it. So when we put these two things together, AI in app development means using prompts to generate the text for the files that are in the app. That's it. What that looks like is this. You go from prompt, you get the files, you get the app. That's it. But here's the thing. What if we ignore the files in the middle? What if we just completely say, do you know what? I am going to just completely ignore that this is a thing. It's inconsequential to what I am trying to achieve here. And instead, go from prompt to the app. And when we want changes, we just go back to the prompt. This is vibe coding. We are not worrying about what's in the middle bit. We're just worrying about what's on either side. And what it looks like, I'm missing a slide, but you basically go around in this circle of you prompt, you get your application, you note down your changes, and then you just put those changes back in the prompt. So what that looks like in terms of a prompt is this right here. So I wanted a countdown timer, and every time I click the button, it reset the timer, but then it also added a number to a counter. All right, it's pretty simple. So I put the prompt in, build me an app that is a counter and a countdown timer. Yeah. Art of vibe coding. Okay. Oh, my Mac Mini is starting to chug now. Okay. No, that's fine. I'm actually going to start a document called live stream lessons. And I'm going to put in no links in, name all streams, Zoom for video call. Okay, cool. I'm just going that way. I've just got a list as we go along, and then we've got it for next time, right? So how do we vibe code? So this is an example of an application that I wanted where I was basically saying, right, okay, build me an app that is a counter and a countdown timer. When the app opens, a 5-minute timer starts counting down, and the counter is at 0. When I click the button labeled count, it adds 1 to the counter and resets the timer and begins the countdown again. That's all I want. So I go ahead and I get this, exactly what I wanted. I said the thing and I got the thing. Brilliant, fantastic. But it's a bit too big. I want it a lot smaller because I want it in the side of my screen. So as I'm doing repetitive tasks, I can sit there and count it and just make sure that I'm staying on those tasks. So it's too big. So I just say, make it half the size. And it's now half the size. Brilliant. And then I think, you know what? Actually, I don't like these colors. I quite like purple and gold. So I ask it and it gives me purple and gold. That's it. That is vibe coding. That is it in a nutshell. And this is the slide I wanted previously, but this is what you're doing. You're going to prompt, you're going to create an app, and then you're going to note the changes, and then you're just going to prompt again. And you just keep going and going and going. And that's how you get to your application. So how are you going to vibe code? And I think this is just a way of giving a bit of information on how you can do it out there, and how we're going to do it is going to be via other means. So first of all, you've got all-in-one platforms. And the all-in-one platforms are like Lovable, Replit, AI Studio, Base 44. And these will just take care of everything, right? The whole shebang. It will just take care of what you need. It will deploy, it will do all of those things. Be noted though, you do often have to pay for credits or tokens. And I had heard many a horror story of people spending a lot of money for applications that don't work. So be warned on that one. Be clear on where you are. But you can also go the generic LLM route, and this requires some knowledge of how to manage the files that is the application. So you can use ChatGPT to kind of and Gemini and Claude to be able to generate the code, and then you put it in and just sort of do it. Now you might have a workflow that does those things automatically, but overall you kind of need to know how these things are put together in order to create an application. It's not actually that complicated, and you can use AI to help you on that journey. But that's a bit more of an easier way. Like Gemini is generally free. Like I've never really come across a limit. They just give it to you in pure Google fashion. It's just give it to you and we'll figure out the monetization later. But that's a good way of doing it. So some tips for vibe coding. First of all is don't be too ambitious, right? Work in ways that you can control the domain. It's very easy to sort of fall into the space of building something massive, building something big, and the context can kind of get away from you, right? As you prompt, it kind of gets away from you. It starts sort of just creating things that you don't really want. And having all these pieces work together suddenly becomes very complicated. And sometimes the LLMs have a real big issue with this. Work in small increments, like sometimes you will do this as an entire file. That is an entire set of work that needs to be completed in order to get that output. But generally, work in small increments. It's a lot easier to manage the errors and manage those problems. And that also leads on to focus to one job to be done, one flow, one feature. So one thing I have experienced, and this is from facilitating a vibe coding event in London, is when I go around and I talk to people and I see how they're getting on, very often they can bounce between two issues, right? Where they kind of build feature A and then they build feature B and feature A stops working. So they prompt to fix feature A, but that in turn breaks feature B. So then they prompt to fix feature B, but that in turn breaks feature A again. And they bounce between the two, just going back and forth and back and forth. So if you focus on one feature and one flow and one thing to be one job to be done, then you're in a situation where you can actually control that a little bit more and be able to say, well, actually, we can give it the context in order to keep this piece of it true and say, right, that's done. Don't worry about that. Be descriptive as possible. You know, if you're putting through changes in your prompting and your prompts are nowhere near a level of saying, you know, if your prompts are not a paragraph of like really detailed information, right? So you're saying, right, if the user does X, then Y will happen. But if this condition is met, then Z will happen, right? That's what you want from your description, right, to your prompt. And one tip that is general for design and development in general, like just good advice, is that if you're intending for it to exist on mobile, it's a lot easier to go from mobile and up than it is to go from desktop and down. And that's because if you're in a situation where something fundamentally doesn't work, right? And you're in a situation where something fundamentally can't fit on page from mobile and up, then you can just present the mobile view and it will still work, right? Yes, you'll have quite a lot of white space, but at least it will work. Whereas on desktop, if you go from desktop and down, you get stuck in this place where nothing really works, like nothing really connects or anything. And lastly, when it comes to vibe coding, have fun, right? Enjoy it. Have a good time. You know, it's something you can enjoy. And with the vibe coding event that I used to help to facilitate, like a big part of it is this can be a hobby for you, right? You can sit down, build an application. I spoke to I spoke to somebody at the event and they did not know what to expect when they turned up, right? They were just like, I saw this vibe coding thing. I don't know what it is. I thought I'd show up and see what happens. And what she built was a means of tracking, making sure she's stretching and hydrating, And every time she stretched and hydrate, she would hit a button, and she had built a little Tamagotchi that the Tamagotchi's needs were met by her meeting her needs, right? So if she stretched for 5 minutes, she can click, "I stretch for 5 minutes," and her Tamagotchi was a lot happier. She drank water and stayed hydrated, then she would give water to her Tamagotchi, and then that would do it. And she was like, "I literally turned up at 6 and had nothing. I came up with an idea, and then I had a thing, and then I love it." Right? And I pinged her on LinkedIn. She was like, "I use this thing every day. It's great." And it's like, yeah, that's it. That is it. Have fun with it, and start there. And then once you have fun with it and you get to that point and you learn the workflow of the whole thing, then you can explore building something a little bit more, maybe enterprise, maybe consumer level, maybe there's something you want to release. At least you're going to start to learn all of these bits and pieces that are required to have an app that is secure, that is robust, that has some kind of redundancy, that is fully functional in the way that you expect it, and has user flows that meets the users where they are. And just before I finish, just before I finish, I had an interesting problem where I was in Figma, and well, basically, I had my slides here are all very much a case of being on brand. And the issue I was finding was trying to get that on brand in Google Slides was really difficult. And I was always shifting between 4:3 ratio and 16:9 ratio, right? Depending on, whether I was doing a live talk or I was doing one here. So it was like, it's a bit annoying to have to create two lots of every files. But what I realized was actually, if I do it in Figma and I make everything responsive, then all I need to do is create one slide and then I can just pinch it in and everything will move into place, right? Because I know how to do that in Figma. Problem is, Figma presentation is an absolute pain and it really doesn't do what you want it to do. So I was just exporting all of these PNGs and I was like, right, well, how can I present these PNGs? Right. And I was like, I could put it in Google Slides, but then again, that's annoying on its own. Right. And that's a whole other step. Right. All I need is to take a whole bunch of PNGs, dump it into a tool, and then click a button and present it. That's exactly what I built. And this is what you're viewing right now. And I vibe coded this at that vibe coding event. On the second time I went to that vibe coding event, that's exactly what I did. And as you can see here are all of my slides that I've just presented. If I go to settings, I can just drop in some more files. I can clear all the files out, and I can move these around so they're in order that's right. And then once I'm ready, if I scroll down to the bottom slide, I can click the bottom slide, and then I can click present, and it goes to full screen. I vibe coded that in an hour, and I got this whole presentation done and available to everybody. On my website, chuffedcoaching.com/toolkit, you will find this very tool. But that's me. That's everything. You can find me at ChuffDom everywhere in all the places, and on LinkedIn at Dom-Maurice. That's if LinkedIn doesn't ban me for me bad mouthing them in the last 20 minutes. But that is the art of vibe coding. There we go. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. 100%. That is absolutely like such an important. This is something I like. I put it in the thing of art of vibe coding, right? Because a lot of people go into starting to put interfaces together, and this is a mistake they always make: is that they go in and they build their desktop thing, and then you're like, right, well, people are going to access that on mobile, and suddenly they're trying to squeeze it in, and it's like what you're not doing are those things. But exactly as you said, it's like, well, what is the singular focus? What is the singular job of this feature? right? What is it that is the key flow for every user who comes in here? You're going to easily figure that out on mobile because you've got a limited amount of real estate. But going desktop, you do kind of go, oh, you end up what I call like painting the interface, where people just make it look good, but then you put it in front of people and they're like, I don't know what to do. And I said, yeah, that's the problem. I actually worked with, I was contracted to a company, and the head of product, right? The head of product, we would be in meetings and we'd go through the designs for a new feature, and he'd be like, oh, there's too much white space, right? And I'm like, don't fear the white space. It doesn't matter, right? The white space doesn't matter. Just don't fear the white space. It's fine. He's like, no, no, there's too much white space. Let's put this here. Let's put that there. And let's put this graph here. And it was like painting the user interface. And it's like, you're not. It's not your job, you know, to sit there and say, oh, I want it to look nice, right? Because if people don't know what to do, they're going to go, and that's what's always going to happen. Doesn't matter how nice your look. Doesn't matter how nice your shit looks. If it isn't functional, people won't use it. That's it. And if it's not obvious what they're supposed to be doing, they'll go somewhere else. And that's sort of the trap he found himself in. And he later was no longer the head of product. And I was made the head of product. But anyway, that's another story. Um, let's stop sharing and come back to our main view. So yeah, I think that was good. And now we need to kind of talk about like coming up with ideas and user research, right? And where we're going with this stuff, with this area of things. And part of where we need to kick off with this is how are we going to find an idea? Now, my approach, and we can have a bit of a discussion for 5 minutes about this and then sort of jump in. But my sort of approach of finding ideas is to come in and talk about um oh, someone on TikTok said thanks for the presentation. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. Uh, oh, good. I'm hoping that the is in Spain. Um, yeah, no, nice, real nice. But yeah, part of how do I find an idea? Like as a product manager, how do I ideate on a feature, right? And very often I'm in a situation where I've either got no users and I've got to acquire them, or I've got a bunch of users and I need to deliver more value, right? And how do I ideate on a feature? And the way I get there is by talking to my users to an extent that I know them so well I can anticipate their needs, right? And that's part of how I do my feature ideation. Working as a product manager for a unicorn, that's exactly what I did. Like that's how I got so many people bought into my product and using my features, was to go in and say, right, I'm going to know these people so well, I'm going to know their problems before they know their problems, right? And then build the solution, and therefore they end up in a situation of, oh, that's actually really useful for me, thanks. Um, so I tend to start with the user, and a product approach very often is to start with the user and talk about them and their problems and their pain points. But there's some sort of techniques you can go through that will help you on that do that whole process. That's my approach. How about you, Dil? Like, how do you um, approach coming up with ideas and functionality and all that kind of stuff? Like, what do you do? Mm, yeah. Mm, yeah. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Do you know what my favorite question is when I do B2B and I talk to people? I ask them, oh, okay. Uh, well, I'm just going to update all of my. I'm going through and updating all of my LinkedIn posts to put my YouTube feed in it. Whilst we're okay. Are we live again? Oh, I'm still live, so I'm going to keep talking. But you're absolutely right. Like if you're B2B and you want to get, in all cases, if you want to build an application and you want to build a product, like the most important thing is you go and you talk to people. And you're absolutely right. Like finding their pain points is the key, right? One of the biggest mistake I find with people who are becoming new founders, but also new product managers, is they go out and they just ask for, what's your problems? What do you want? Right? And it's the worst questions to ask. It sort of seems like it's very counterintuitive and it kind of feels like asking people for what they want is the best way to kind of understand. But the problem is that people don't know what they want. That's the point, right? And if you ask everybody what they want, you'll get like 10 different answers, and a lot of them will contradict each other. Building a product, and a good product at that, is to be able to meet the needs and solve the problems on a wider scale, sometimes in a way people don't expect it should be solved, but they're happy to accept it if the problem is solved in its entirety. So, for example, you might be in a case that I always use an analogy like you're in one field and you want to get to the other field, but there's a big wall in your way. Right. Okay. So how do I solve that problem? Well, I can give you a shovel and you can dig a tunnel underneath the wall. I can give you a piece of rope and you can climb up the wall and over the other side. I can give you a ladder. I can, give you, something to break the wall down with, right? And there's so many different ways that you can do it. But what is the answer that's actually going to reach everybody? Right. And trying to figure that out actually is quite difficult because you need to understand the problem behind the product, behind the user as so well that you're able to sort of turn around and say, this solution, I'm going to show you where the door is. Right. And suddenly people are like, well, yeah, cool. I don't need all that other stuff if you just show me where the door is. Or if you take away the need to get to the other field in the first place. Right. That's also another way. So, how you solve a problem is very much dependent on the wider scale sentiment of the people that you're building for. And you only get there by talking to people. Um, are we live on TikTok again? So yeah, you were saying in a world get on the touchy feely questions. Absolutely. My favorite question when it comes to B2B, and I'm talking to people who are going to be enterprise clients or whatever else it is, my favorite question to ask people is what's boring about your workflow, right? What's boring about your day? They immediately tell you what their pain points are because they will immediately go, "Oh, do you know what? I hate it when I have to get this document from whoever and upload it to this thing, and then I do it, and then it doesn't work, and blah 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 blah." Those things really give you a lot of information. And right now, mate, you're experiencing it, right? What's frustrating right now? It's like, why is the stream not working? Right? All I want to do is go live. All I want to do is go live to my audience, and the stream isn't working. And immediately, it's evident that the pain point is there. And I had the frustration with LinkedIn, right? It's the exact same thing. It's like all I want to do is click a button, go live, and talk. That's it. But yeah, it's stopping me doing that. And here I am on YouTube, and immediately it started working. So YouTube is the way forward. I thought I'll give LinkedIn one more try and give it one more chance, but you know what? Nada. So yeah, asking people what's boring about their workflow really, really reveals a lot about what pain points you want to target, because they will give you not only because it's not only just find pain points, it's find pain points that are immediate enough, urgent enough, and deep enough that they'll actually do something about it, right? Because there are pain points that people experience where folks are just like, yeah, I know that's a pain point, but I'm not going to do anything about it. Right? That happens all the time. We've all got a drawer that we need sorting out. We've all got that thing that's kind of bodged together that we need to sort it out properly. Right? We've all got those things in our lives, and we don't do it because the pain point is not severe enough and not urgent enough for us to do anything about it. So don't build for that stuff, because then people won't pay you for it. Right? You need to make the problem as urgent and as painful and as severe as possible. Once you find that pain point, then you're in a situation where you can turn around and say, okay, this is a pain point that I can build for. And every time I've built in those pain points, I've been in a situation where I've got paid users into my platforms. I've improved user acquisition, I've improved retention. And then I get to a point of saying, okay, cool, we're now in a way of building a user base, because we're dealing with a pain point that is so severe and so urgent that they're going to do whatever they need to do to get it off their plate and alleviate that pain. So, a quick story. I was talking to I was hired to a client, and I was talking to their users, and it was a compliance bit of software. And I was talking to this woman. Her name was Debs, and she was like a wall, right? I went to Debs and I was talking to her, and she would not give me anything, right? It's like, man, I can't get through to her. I was trying to get to a point. And when I do user interviews, like what I'm always trying to do is get them to have a little bit of a rant, because then they'll reveal pain points to you, right? And I was sort of going in and I was talking about this whole thing about what's frustrating about your job, what's boring about your job, and she wasn't even giving me anything. And then I asked her one specific question, right, which unlocked everything, which was, "Who's the asshole in the office?" I was like, "Come on, Debs, between you and me, who's the asshole in the office, really?" And immediately she just opened up and she went, "Oh, do you know what, Steve? He really does my head in sometimes." I'm like, what's up with Steve? What's beef with Steve? Tell me about it. Tell me all about it, right?" And she was saying like, "Well, we have to upload these compliance documents, right? And he'll come and ask me for them, but they're not ready yet. And I tell him they're not ready yet. But then every Friday he comes up to me and says, right, can I get those compliance documents?" And I'm like, I'm not finished yet. I'm still working on them, right? The previous version of the compliance documents is the up-to-date version of the compliance documents. And I was like, interesting. Because what the product originally was trying to solve was a communication problem. But it became evident that no, it's not a communication problem. It's a document management problem. Specifically, it's a version control problem. So what I built as a feature in the application was effectively I had rebuilt a version of Git inside the project, so that when people upload their compliance documents, then they're in a situation where the person who needs to do all of their work can go and look and say, well, what is the latest version of the docs, right? What is the live version? right? So basically creating two branches, the branches that Deb's working on, and then the submission branch which Steve needs to work on, right? And then that way they're not butting heads against each other, right? They know what's in progress, they know what's live and ready. And I did do subsequent user interviews after talking to Debs, by the way. just to report, I spoke to another like 30 people after that. But when I released that feature, instantly their retention was fixed, right? Because that was a pain point so severe. And in my user story for that ticket, I wrote down, I want Debs to stop being so pissed off with Steve every single Friday when he nags her for the documentation, right? So I released this feature, and yeah, all their retention problems went away, and they found themselves in a position where they were like, "Oh my god, this has made such a difference." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Let's continue that flow of going out, finding the pain points, bringing people into the product, really kind of finding severe pain points in what I often call zero-day value. Right? You want to deliver value straight out of the gate." And once you get there, people then come into your products and then they pay for your services, and they're more than happy to pay for your services. So that is an example. When you talk to people in the B2B space, you find yourself in a situation where you can really get a lot of quick wins in without having to really do a whole bunch of other nonsense like, competitor analysis and market analysis and blah 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 blah. Talk to people, find their pain points, build something to fill that pain point, and then you can build everything else around that. Right. So how's things on TikTok? Is it, we're live? All right, fantastic. Should we do some user research? I think you. So I was just going to go through. I was going through my Notebook LM on the previous stream. Um, should I show that and talk about that a little bit? And this then opens up to the floor. So yeah, everybody watching on the live. Is it just the two of us? Okay. Wow. Well, we'll keep talking then. Okay, let me do the old sharey screeny. Let's get a little bit of that on the YouTubes. There we go. And let's go to share. Yeah, I'm just looking for it now. Let's go to, yeah, that one. Cool. Fantastic. Right. We are sharing. Yes, we are sharing indeed. So I will also go through like how I put this together. But essentially what I'm doing is that I want to do an initial piece of user research. This doesn't take away from going out and talking to people, but what it does help with is finding a very interesting problem, and it gives you the frame of how do you go out and talk to people in order to learn pain points so you build a product that people want to pay for. That's what we're trying to get to here. So what we can do within Notebook LM is that we can take a large data set, right? And very often I will use subreddits, and I will take that data set, and then effectively I will create the person I'm trying to get in front of and the person that I'm trying to build for as represented by that data set, as that scrape of Reddit, right? And when I put it in Notebook LM, what I can then do is put all of my templates in there and all of my documentation in there to then create all of the stuff I need to build an app. And then therefore gives me the ability to say, well, this is how I'm going to sell that thing. So like you were saying, like once you get to that touchy-feely stuff and you get down to the core feelings of people, then you connect with them on a level where, people will feel like, oh, okay, then cool. I want to move up. I want to pay for this thing because it's such a pain point. It's worthwhile paying for. So I'm watching the live and my head sort of cut off a little bit. So I'm just wondering. I'm gonna go to layout. Can I move my head? Oh, I can move my head. Okay. I'm gonna move my head to slightly further up. Okay, let's move it down a little bit. Like the last little bit is kind of cut off on the live, but I'm just fixing that now. Bear with me. Bear with me. Okay, cool. Right. Okay. Right. We're sorted. Can you see my screen? Okay, cool. So which ones out of this kind of take your fancy? Like these are some users, kind of represented as a Notebook LM. Not all of them. Where do you want to go? So I've got neurodivergent experience, right? So this is productivity for people who have ADHD. Contemporary called this is people into this is people generally into photography. These are people retro gamers. These are people who collect physical media, right? I actually have a SaaS platform, a micro SaaS platform for these people. This is why I did this one. People who are into PC and gaming, people who are into learning how to cook. This is kind of web devs and the issues they find. Generally, this is the one I work with because those are the people I work with. Forget the Flutter one, that didn't really go anywhere. These are British freelancers and what their experiences are. We've got people in the e-commerce space who are trying to start an e-commerce store. I did a quick one with fitness. I don't know if that's in a lot of detail. And engineers who are looking to become entrepreneurs as well. Let's go to the ADHD one. Okay. And let's come here. So in this page, I have got here, as you can see, I've got Reddit scraped post. If I click Reddit scraped posts and I go into it, you can see, let me just get the summary out of the way. Right. This is a pretty big file. Like, can you see? But this is a scrape of Reddit, right? And this has got several subreddits all related to this one. I will show you how I create this file in a bit. But basically, this then creates this area. So what I can do is I can come into the chat now and I can say, using the Reddit scrapes file, create for me three. Should we just let's go one persona that is most prominent in the source file with the template and guidance provided. So I have my own templates in here, right? That I've just collected over being a product manager, right? And doing all those things. And that's now going to define the persona with sort of my way of doing things, and it's not that my way is the only way, it's just the way that I do it, right? So there's more than one way. So we're going to be defining it. So what it's going to do, which is really useful about Notebook LM, is that it's going to give you all of the references back to the source material, right? So because this is actually an academic tool, right? So if I'm in a place of saying, right, okay, I want to, I'm building this persona and this ideal customer profile and all of their pain points, it's always going to link back to something that's real, right? And that's the thing that's important that I'm trying to get to. You want it to link back to something that is real because then you're going to be able to act on it and be able to touch point on those things. So we are now generating our persona. So at the end of this, because you have ADHD, right? Is that right? Do you have ADHD? Yeah. Okay. So what we can do is you can give me a score out of 10 of how close this is. Right. So the persona name is Paralyzed Parker. Okay. The name alludes to a frequent state of analysis paralysis and physical function freeze described throughout the sources. Competence. Right. These are the motivations. Right. The motivations behind this persona. Competence. I'm desperate to prove that I'm not lazy, broken, or stupid, and that I can function as a capable adult despite my internal struggles. Okay, right. Immediately we started to hit it, right? Autonomy. I want to stop fighting a war with my own mind and finally bridge the massive gap between my intentions and my ability to take action. Sense of community. I'm seeking validation that my weird behaviors, like sitting in a towel for hours and doom scrolling when I have urgent work, are not just moral failings, but shared neurodivergent experiences. Okay. I think that first one really hit, right? Okay. So goals. Eliminate the ADHD tax. I want to stop losing money on missed flights, forgotten subscriptions, late fees, and impulse hobbies that I drop after 2 weeks. Break the paralysis loop. I need to find a way to initiate tasks like washing dishes or sending an email without needing a crisis, panic, or deadline mode to force me into motion. All right. So break the paralysis loop. So these are goals now. So to break the paralysis loop, I need to find a way to initiate tasks like washing dishes or sending one email without the need of crisis, panic, or deadline mode to force me into motion. Does that relate? Yeah. Okay. So, um, secure, consistent stability. I want to access reliable medication and workplace accommodations without constantly fighting my medical bureaucracy, like shared care revocations or facing discrimination. I think that is more America centric. That one. Yeah. So pain points: task paralysis and shame. I experience physical inability to move from the sofa to perform simple tasks, cleaning, showering, even when I desperately want to, leading to a spiral of self hatred, feeling like a failure. That one has a lot of references. Yeah, I'm gonna skip over a couple here. Masking burnout. I feel that I'm living a double life, attending a costume party of myself as an effort to appear neurotypical at work, with family leaves me completely drained and unable to function at home. Time blindness. I cannot perceive time accurate. Sorry, I didn't even read the sentence. Didn't even read the sentence. Yeah. I cannot perceive time accurately. 5 minutes feels like 45 minutes, or entire years feel like they have just evaporated, causing me chronically late or feel like life is passing me by in the fast forward. So, where we are in terms of activities, digital escapism, I spent hours doom scrolling on my phone, hack seeking. I actively use search tools like body doubling, focus mate, visual timers, ugly first draft techniques to trick my brain to productivity. Rationing care, I have to ration my medication, skipping doses on weekends, low stake days. Impulse spending, I engage with dopamine seeking spending on new hobbies or crafts that I abandon quickly, leaving me with clutter and debt. Okay, so that's sort of where we're at. Now it's kind of put together a problem statement, right? And again, this is kind of generally in the form that I kind of put problem statements in, but this is not the final form. This gives me a baseline to go and ask questions about. As a late diagnosed neurodivergent adult in a state of function freeze, I want to bridge the gap between my intentions and my actions to manage my daily life. But I am physically immobilized by executive dysfunction because my brain requires urgency, novelty, or the support of my current environment, or support that my current environment lacks. And therefore, I suffer from the ADHD tax, chronic burnout, and deep sense of shame when not reaching my potential. So, how are we out of 10? Okay. And part of that is if you look at the problem statement on my screen, like it gives you in Notebook LM like where it references these things, how it's generated that by looking at the reference in the scraped data, right? And it sort of brings these things in, and you can go look at what people say. And you can go to those posts and go read the comments, right? And this is what I'll do in terms of user research to kind of start that process, right? So so I would start to hypothesize. Right. Do you wanna work on this thing? Like, do you wanna delve. Yeah, 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 yeah. So really what you're saying, what I'm hearing from you there is you relate to this, let's say 8 out of 10, right? What I've read out throughout this problem statement and this persona, like it matches you, let's say 8 out of 10. And what you're saying is that when I look at current solutions, the problem is that it doesn't just deliver me the thing that I want, right? It doesn't meet me where I am when it comes to like just fixing my problems and just doing shit, right? Is that fair? Mm. What's the good shit? Right. And what does that help look like? Like, how do you know when the help is useful? Mm. Right. You got to get it done. Right. And this persona that got generated, it talked about a sense of urgency. Like, does a sense of urgency help drive you to get that task done? Okay. 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 Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do think that as well. You know. Yeah. Yeah. So if we frame this as an app, then it's not really going to help us, right? If we frame it as an app, because if we're going to sit there and say, "Well, we're going to build a thing and we're going to build an app," that's not going to help you, right? Because you know, it, it doesn't really apply itself in a way. So we need to look at a digital product from a different point of view. Now, my view on digital products, it's a bit difficult because I'm mixing in all the theory behind product in with this interview, right? I'm doing these user interview, by the way. I just revealed about 4 things from you just from those questions. But like part of what I'm trying to do is kind of get to the perspective that you need and meeting you where you are, and that thing is key, right? That the information about ADHD triggers your ADHD in itself, right? That's what I'm hearing, and it's not meeting you where you are, right? It's sort of saying you need to come to us and then we'll do it. But part of your neurodivergency makes it difficult for you to get there. That is a barrier for you, right? Where it's like it creates a barrier for me and I can't really get there. I'm just vocalizing what's in my head and what I'm hearing, and this is part of, for anybody going out and doing user interviews with people, like if you're a product manager, you're sort of a part therapist at the same time because you need to figure out what's underneath and at the root of all these things. So let's kind of get back to where we're talking, right? So framing it as an application is not going to help you because that in itself is a way of sort of saying is an ADHD problem in itself. So we can't frame it as an application, but a digital product merely means I'm going to solve a problem online on a device, right? It doesn't have to be a case of it needs to be an app on a phone, right? It can be other things, right? So what can those other things be? So the way I'm going to go in the direction now, and it's sort of a bit self-defeating, but because I'm telling you what I'm going to do, but where I'm going to go now is to sort of figure out, well, what perspective works for you, right? What framing works for you, and that's the bit I need to get to, right? So what are your hobbies? What do you do in your spare time? Code. That's outside of coding, outside of writing code. Family. Okay. How is the family? Yeah. Yeah. Lots of vacuuming, no doubt. Yeah. Whenever I go around my friend's house and they've got kids, like it's just like the vacuum just lives out because they're just like constantly vacuuming. I'm just like, okay. And like, how do you? I mean, when it comes to like doing, tasks for your kids, I mean, how old are they? Sorry, 10 and 8. So they're probably getting into activities now, right? And you're sort of taking them to places to what activities are they doing, like swimming and stuff, or right? So you got to get them to places, right? And how do you make sure you get them there on time with respect to your ADHD? Okay. Mm. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Mm. Right. So if I turned around and said, right, Claudebot's gone now. It's dead. It's no more. You don't get it anymore. How would you feel? Okay. What if I replace that with saying, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to ban you from using Clawbot, but I'm going to give you a free assistant. And you can ask that assistant to do whatever they want you to do. And she's going to turn up, or he's going to turn up to your place and just going to do whatever you ask. They're gonna look at your emails, they're gonna point out what's important, they're gonna, point out, what tasks need to be done today. Like, is that an acceptable trade? Yeah, a person who comes who is your own personal assistant that works 24/7, right? Because they're superhuman, right? I've gone and I've hired Superman, right? Or Captain America. It's for free. It's for free. I'll replace OpenClaw with Superman. Would you take? Okay. So what I'm hearing is that keeping on top of all the tasks and keeping on top of all the activities of your kids, right? When it comes to your family, right? That becomes overwhelming. And you just need stuff to be like, look, just take care of it. I don't care. Just take care of it. And whether that is Clawbot or another product or Superman, that's acceptable, right? Um, so what's the thing that always slips through the net for you? Like when it comes to your ADHD, like what slips through the net and gets you to a place of lateness? Okay, right. Okay, lateness. So you just need to make sure that you're in the right place at the right time, right? Yeah. And what kind of so you talk about we've been talking about time blindness, right? What does time blindness mean to you? Like, how do you feel about time blindness? How would you express it? Mm. And how is it a calendar can't solve that problem for you? Okay. Why do you hate calendars? What is offensive about calendars to you? What if calendars were a person, why would you punch it in the face? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Okay. Okay, so we need to so yeah, okay. So I'm gonna put my product hat back on again and explain what I'm doing and explain what I've learned, right? That one phrase I think tells me everything. Don't tell me what to do, right? So whatever you build, right? And whatever we build in this space, and I think we're sort of heading towards we might build something for yourself in the ADHD neurotypical space, is you don't want to be told what to do. You need to make sure that you are in the right place at the right time because you are underestimating, overestimating time. But at the same point, what you really need is the load taken off, right, your shoulders, because you've got this overload of tasks and activities and timekeeping, right? That when an entity takes it from you, that's when you're in a place of ease, right? Okay. So that tells me a lot. And as well, like that whole phrase of like, don't tell me what to do, right? So we were talking about how do we do user interviews and how do we get pain points, right? Notice how I got a very visceral reaction when I said if a calendar was a person, what would make you punch it in the face? Right? Immediately you told me exactly what that pain point is. Right. And this is the importance of sort of abstracting the world around us into a form that people can have a visceral reaction to. That's when you learn pain points. That's when you find a place that you can say something that will have a reaction that will inform you on something important. Look at how important that is. If I bought an app that told you what to do, you would never use it, right? But if I built an app that was just a scheduling thing that helped you with your timekeeping, but it told you what to do, then you wouldn't use it, right? So now I know part of what needs to be involved in the user experience when it comes to delivering this thing. It's like it cannot tell you what to do. It can merely put in front of you the most condensed framework of activities that need to happen where your time blindness is either you don't have to worry about your time blindness, but at the same point, it's not just saying, right, leave the house at this time, get here at this time, go do this thing at this time, go get in your car at this time, right? That's not going to work, right? This okay. So so yeah. Yeah. Okay. So like the digital version of your wife then, where basically it says, right, okay, you've got to be at the swimming pool at 5 o'clock, right? So I need to figure out, make sure you live at this. Yeah, that's exactly it, right? So if you're at this need to be the swimming pool at 5 o'clock, right? And you're at the house and it's like, well, I want to have to drive for 45 minutes, right? For example, that thing then needs to say, right, 55 minutes beforehand is whatever you're doing, wrap it up because you've now got to go and, you know, you're going to be taking the kids to swimming at 5, right? Is that kind of fair? Okay. Right. And everything, yeah. Okay. I'm going to swap over my screens to Exceladdraw, right? And we're going to draw on screen for a little bit. And I also YouTube screen. Let's go here and here and here and here. Okay, can you see my whiteboard? Cool, fantastic. So here we are in a situation where we've got our mystery box, right? And we call this the mystery box, right? It's just magic. Don't worry about the details of it. It's just magic, right? And this is you over here, right? And you're annoyed because you need to be at places, right? You have to be, at this time, you need to be here at this time, right? And being able to manage the time in between the times, right? So leaving time, waiting time, or the pickup time, right? You've got to manage those times as well, and that's quite difficult. The magic box will basically look at your life, right? And go, okay, well, I know what's in your life because I've looked at your emails, right? And I've looked at, potentially looked at your calendar, right? And that might be a case of, your wife kind of signs you up for things, right? And puts that data in there, right? And says, oh, we've got swimming on every Thursday at 5. Okay, cool. Stick that in the calendar, right? I know you're not going to look at it because you fucking hate the calendar. That's fine, but that's okay. The magic box is going to take care of it for you, right? And then what the magic box is going to do is basically say, okay, this is your itinerary for the day because I looked at all your things. And then I'm going to give you a button, right? And that button just says, do you accept this list of tasks? Right? You don't have to. You can change it. But do you accept it? How engaged are you to click that button? How much do you want to click that button? It it'll be a list of things. It'll basically be like, okay, it's 4 o'clock. Whatever you're doing, wrap it up because a countdown time has started, and in 5 minutes you need to go take the kids to swimming, right? And if you do it now, you'll get to swimming on time, and then you can do whatever you want after that, right? In this, I might well say, okay, I'm going to put some free time in here as well, right? So I'm going to say, look, do what you want, but it's going to give you this list of where you need to be and what you need to be doing at each time. And you have a button that you can click that says, I accept that, or you can change it. That's fine. Would you click how out of 10, how do you feel about clicking that button? Why not? Well, it just says, yeah, I confirm that. This is the things I want to do. That's it. Okay. 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 Fantastic. Right. Now, the reason I asked this question, but I'm putting the product management hat back on again. The reason I'm asking this question in this form, and I'm sort of showing you in this sort of place, is that can you see how this now starts to user stories? How this starts to kind of form the user stories, right? So, as a person who has ADHD and is neurodivergent and has an element of time blindness, I need to just have a list that I can look at and say, right, that's what I need to do. That's where I need to be. Cool. Now I can just get on with what I'm doing, right? How does that like you don't need to interact with that. You're sort of what you're saying to me right now, and I think that would actually need some exploration a little bit more, but I'm not going to go through it. But what it's sort of saying to me is that actually there's sort of a place where you kind of don't need to accept it. You just want to be showing it, right? And that sort of tells me what that user story is, right? I need to see just a list of stuff so that I can know exactly where I need to be and what I need to be doing at the time of day. I don't need any other bullshit, just this thing. That's it, right? And that needs to come from my emails, my calendar, and maybe even my, WhatsApp, right? That might be how your wife may well integrate with you, right? Is by sort of coming in and saying, what your wife is going to interface by you by sort of texting you saying, oh yeah, don't forget you've got to pick up that thing at 7, right? At this place, right? But if you go in there and you say, right, this is my location, right? And it might be a case that you just say, right, I'm going to add in my home location, and it's going to calculate the time to all of those routes along the way as a rough estimate, right? Maybe add 15 minutes for traffic and or other nonsense. Then we can say like, okay, look, it's 6 o'clock, and your wife said you need to go pick this up, so go pick it up, right? You need to leave now, right? Yeah, but you need that sense of urgency. We talked about that already, right? You need a sense of urgency. How would you feel if at that moment, right, you've got 15 minutes to leave the house, right? What if at that moment Superman bust in your house and put in your hand a timer, a countdown timer, and it was a big timer that just said like 15 minutes, 14:59, 14:58. Like, how would you feel about that if Superman bust in your house saying you've got to leave? Okay, okay. So within this list, then we have to sort of figure out how do we create a sense of urgency. Okay, we're now in the world of user stories, right? And I'm starting to kind of have a thing, right? So the user story needs to look like this: that you get a list of things that you just need to do, and as things are coming to time, you need to have some sense of urgency put into that particular task in order for you to get up, and you know get your shit together and get out of the house, right? Can you see how this is starting to sort of shape itself into a? Do you know what? Do you know what? Do you know what I was? Do you know what my next question was going to be? Do you see how this starts to form into a product? Okay, should we build it? Well, let's start simply. Let's make sure our scope is relevant. Okay, we've got an hour, so let's make sure our scope is relevant. Let's just talk about WhatsApp as an interface, right? Now, I know we're in the Clawbot world right now, right? So if we talk from you know, when we slim down, we talk about minimal viable product, right? What we want to do is sort of say, like, do you know what? Actually, let's just have one interface, right? To start off with, we can connect to like a million things, but let's actually just talk about one interface, right? So let's make that WhatsApp, okay? And that's it, okay? So what we can do is maybe we'll put a thing that you can tell. I don't know if we need to do that actually. What we could do is scan the messages and say, and basically use an LLM to say, is this a task? Right? And then we need to figure out, does it have a time? Does it have a date? If that's true, let's stick that into a database. Okay. Let's do the old, oh, no, whoopsie. Let's stick that into a database, right? Let's store it there. Okay. And then what you have on the iOS level is that it just looks at it and says, okay, then what's coming up? And let's just put an hour in front of it. And then say, okay, let's put a countdown timer of 1 hour to that event. And that's it. That's the whole thing. And then it will take all of your events and begin to give you that list to say, okay, these are all your events. The next event, here's a countdown timer when it's 1 hour to go. And every time you open it, there's a big countdown timer, right? You open the app and you have like a big countdown timer of what from 1 hour onwards, like so. It will give you that task, which it's countdowning for. And then below it, it will give you, all right, these are the rest of the things for today that you need to go and do. All right, this is where you need to be. I'm not going to use the word task. Okay, let's get rid of this word. Right, I don't like this word. This word offends me. Right, we'll come up with a different word, but there'll be an entry that will say, okay, this is where you got for the rest of the day, and this is where you need to be. This is the countdown for the next task, but for when it needs to get done, and that's it. How does that sound? should we use another interface? That's fine. We could change the interface, right? All we need to do is time and date, and what we can do as like a stretch goal is location. But we'll do that as a stretch goal, so we can get this as V1 is just time and date and a 1 hour timer, and then we can get clever about the timer and the location at another iteration. All right. So what other interfaces can we use here? So I guess it that your wife is just WhatsApping you, right? But why don't we do it as just like a web page that you can I know that iOS doesn't support progressive web apps, but we can do it as a single page application, and then you can just save that to your home screen. We don't have to worry about notifications or anything along those lines, right? Right now, we just want to get to a point of, okay, I know I have to open this, right? And I know I don't have the alarms right now, and I know I don't have the notifications, but at least I can open it and see, right, what's the countdown timer to the next thing that I've got to do? And I didn't have to go along and connect anything to do that. It was entered in via whatever interface we have here, right? So we have to decide on this interface here because your wife's going to put stuff in there, right? And let's sort of focus on that, right? Let's just make sure that your wife is happy, right? That's the goal of this iteration. Just make sure your wife's happy, and that your wife knows that you're doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing, and that's fine, you know. So she's WhatsApping you. Is that her main way of communicating with you today? Okay. So So let's do that then, right? Let's get rid of WhatsApp and let's put email here instead. So email is the interface, right? So somebody emails you saying, "Oh, just to let you know, the kids' football practice is." But yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? You're all you're gonna do is, you're gonna have you're gonna have something along the lines of like, I'm signed up to the school newsletter, right? I'm not gonna read the newsletter, right? But the school have emails on there and they're gonna email me something saying like, don't forget that Friday is the bake sale and you need to get stuff done, right? That's fine, right? It might be a case that the people, the swimming thing says like, "Oh, yeah, not to forget we're closing early on a Saturday," right? They're gonna send you emails. Now, you're not engaging with emails. This is merely just the interface, right? What we're doing is gonna take that information out, we're gonna pass it through an LLM to work out, right, is there a time, is there a date? And then we're gonna just store that, right? And then we're just gonna present the data in this way. Now, that might not, that's not necessarily an app, a mobile app, but it might be a case of how can we display a countdown timer to give you that sense of urgency? Mm. Solve one problem at a time. Just say, look, all we're worrying about right now is I've got to be in a certain place at a certain time. I just need to make sure I leave at the right time. That's it. That's all we're worrying about right now. Right? It doesn't have to do everything. Just let me know where I need to be at what time. What time do I need to go do this? What time do I need to go do that? How do I work through this whole process and get to that place? Right? That's all we're going to do. Okay. So what you would do, right? So putting my product manager back on again, right? So I'm putting my head of product hat back on. When you start doing this and you talk about things outside, it's in my interest to keep you pinned in because what you're doing is scope creep, right? And what I'm trying to do is keep you pinned in to say just fix one problem right now. Because if we go down this road of all this other stuff, then we'll end up with scope that we can't do anything, right? So kind of let's keep it pinned in and keep it one problem, and let's see if we can solve that one problem. Because if we don't solve that one problem, that's fine, but we know to move to another problem. Because what will happen is that we will have essentially a keystone problem, right? That's what I normally call it anyway, a keystone problem. And when you solve that problem, it unlocks all the other problems, right? So an example of this is Fitbit, right? Fitbit gives you a whole bunch of services, but what's the keystone problem that they fix? Did you go out and walk today? That's it. That's the keystone problem. And you will see this a lot in a lot of other products, right? Where you have this keystone problem that you solve this one problem and suddenly it locks everything else within the means of it. So it might be that making sure that you're in the right place at the right time is not the keystone problem, but we don't know that until you start using it. And you go, do you know what, Dom? I gave this a go and it was shit and I hated it. It's fine. Let's find another problem. But we won't know that until it's in your hands, right? Trying to capture too much of it, right? So if we're in a position where we sort of have this one problem and then you go, right, there's these other things. So we make the problem a little bit bigger. And then there's these other things that makes the problem a little bit bigger and it gets a little bit bigger. The solution becomes too unwieldy for you to adopt. It's too wieldy for anyone to adopt. That's very often you've experienced this, right? You've picked up a new product and somebody said this is a new great thing, it does everything, and then you go to use it and you go, I just don't know how to use this thing, right? That's how apps end up in that problem. That they scope creep to a level where it's like none of this thing means anything anymore, right? I can't focus in on things, right? Like you said, right? Just give me the thing that I need, right? So that's where I'm going with that. Is like I'm trying to find your keystone problem, and I don't know how to do that until you've got something in your hands. So my priority is to get something in your hands to figure out, well, what is your keystone problem? Does that kind of make sense? Right, I'm gonna start sharing my screen. I've got 2 people watching on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. I hope you're well. That was, you get set up. I'm gonna stop sharing. Right. Okay. So that's starting to do its thing now. I'm gonna leave you with that for a bit. I'm gonna go and make a cup of coffee. I need a coffee. Um, if on YouTube, oh, I've got a question from YouTube. Why are you vibe coding though? Just a bit of fun, you know. Why not? A bit of fun. I don't know to TBH. Hi. Yeah, just a bit of fun. Like we're just kind of like going through the whole process of how do you go from user research all the way to a product, right? And going through the whole thing is takes a long period of time. So we're just sort of condensing the whole thing down. If you've been here for the last 20 minutes, you would have seen me go through the questions that a product manager would go through in order to determine, how do we build something? How do we decide what our user stories are? And now we're going to go into phase of just building the thing to see what happens. Part of what I was talking about just there was if you get to a point of saying, right, okay, we found a pain point, right? We determined the parameters around it and talked about all of the touch points that go around it. Once I kind of got to that stage, I then dug into like what does the user story go to, and you would assume, if you listen to what I was the words I was using and the questions I was asking, you would see they're very abstract and very kind of in a place of not really being very deterministic, and that's for the interviewee to fill in the context. And as they fill in the context, it then tells me things that are important in terms of what the user story looks like, and that's where we got to in the end. And it's a very rough way of doing this. Like I would normally do this with like 30 people, maybe 40 people individually, and get to that point where I'm pulling in all of this information so that I can get to a point where I build something. So that was a very long answer of why am I vibe coding it, or why we vibe coding it, is because we want to have something at the end of this to go, hey, we have a thing and it does a thing. But once, Dill's got it in his hands, he can then turn around and say, is this my keystone problem? Well, he's not going to say that. That's for me to determine. Is this his keystone problem? If it's not, it's fine. We go build something else and we figure out what it is. But that's what a product manager does, right? What's the keystone problem? You get there by shipping very fast, putting things in people's hands, and seeing how they react in a way that does actually alleviate their pain point. Um, for I hope that does that answer your question. I don't know, Bill, TBH. I am going to go make another coffee though. I don't know if your audio comes through on the YouTube stream. I'm hoping it is. Yeah.
I'm trying to find my windows, mate. Right, let's try that again.
I think on my YouTube stream, and I'm not sure why, but I don't think your audio is coming through.
I'm trying to find my windows, mate. Right, let's try that again.
I think on my YouTube stream, and I'm not sure why, but I don't think your audio is coming through.
I'm trying to find my windows, mate. Right, let's try that again.
I think on my YouTube stream, and I'm not sure why, but I don't think your audio is coming. Whoops.
I need to close some windows. God damn, this is just getting terrible.
You got all the windows open.
Can't do that. Fuck that. What's this note? We can close that down for a bit.
Oh, let me go.
Don't need that. Don't need that. Whisper mode, awesome tool. Don't need that. Don't need this disgusting piece of shit. Alright, ADHD planner. Let me get a goddamn. Find the window there. Let me find the window, and we want to go to. Projects, ADHD assistant. Right, this is where we are. Then I've also got my DAPAS laws. Copy that over. Put that in this. I am here. Let's put this in board code. Term. Oh my lord. Okay, so now we want cursor. Right, so we got cursor here. Let's go full screen. Let's close this down. Hold on. It's annoying. Okay, so. Taking this time.
I don't think that doing the stream from YouTube is picking up the audio from Zoom. It picks up my audio when I talk through the mic, but it doesn't pick up. I selected the use system audio, but it seems not to be doing it, and I don't know why. My permissions are set up correctly. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so my permissions are set up correctly, but there's something about, I don't know what it is, but yeah, something is not happy with it. Maybe it might be a case that it's the browser version of it. Maybe I need to do it through some streaming software and do that instead for YouTube. We know for next time. This is real life when you get out there and you start doing things live. I think this is where like you know, I mean I've got people on my stream. I don't know how many people are on the TikTok at the moment, but this is people have sort of come in. People reacted to my posts when I put the new links in and came from there. So there is a real sort of people want to see this stuff, right? And I've got people in my chat as well talking about it. So yeah, people want to see this stuff and sort of see it. So we know for next time. How do you feel about like doing this like every couple of weeks or something? Yeah. Oh, I've got a question. Hang on, I've got a question in the chat I didn't answer. So a place where handymen can manage their business, similar to Shopify, then funnel to show those trades to the right people. So this is always an interesting one, right? Because when you do marketplace apps, you need to have 2 personas and 2 ideal customer profiles. And what gets tricky about those things is that you do need to launch in a way that you can capture both of them, right? And one's going to be more important than the other. That's what always happens. So you can build a product that does this, but I would sort of say, right, okay, do you have access to talk to handymen today? And do you have access to a group of people who do this? Like, if somebody wants to get a handyman today, what are they doing to get that handyman, right? What are they doing, right? Now, for me personally, we have a WhatsApp group for my road, and people would just say like, "Oh, does anyone know a painter decorator? Does anyone know an electrician? Does anyone know etc. A gardener?" Right? And another place that happens also is Nextdoor, and I know some people do it on Facebook groups, local Facebook groups, right? So there's a bit of locality, which might be an advantage for you because you can just build a product, and that's what I would actually give as advice: is just build a product for your local community first, and work out how to make that work because that's the only parameters you can control, and do a lot of in-person, very physical ways of going to market, right? Because you're going to have because it's a product that's inevitably going to lead to something physical. So maybe you want to put leaflets through people's doors and get them to say, "Oh, download my app, find a handyman local to your area," right? And then you can have reviews from other local people once they start doing that, but you're not going to get there until you get the first bit out the door. An example of this I would talk about is a company called Airbnb. All right. Now we've all heard of Airbnb, but why is it called Airbnb? That's because the way the app started was the founders went door to door with an air mattress and said, "If we give you this air mattress, would you host somebody for the conference that's in town in a couple of weeks? You take the cash, we'll take a small cut." And that's how Airbnb got started. And that's why it's called Airbnb. So you want to kind of do a similar thing. So I'd read up on the case study of how Airbnb got started in the early days. And then I would look to kind of say, right, how can I get connected with people who may well be looking for a handyman? And then how do I get all the handymen and anyone who's doing a sort of trade into the same place where I can talk to them and say, "Hey, I've got this platform for all the people local in the area." Once you kind of get that bit done and you kind of work out those niggles, then you can kind of think about the bigger scope. Does that answer your question? Praise you a Diley. I hope I said that right. But pretty sure I fucked that up. Yeah. But yeah, did that answer your question? Okay, brilliant. Fantastic. This is a very similar thing. I worked with a client who had a marketplace app, and so much of it was physical. Like they were trying to do so many ad campaigns and stuff like that. And I said, "Look, your entire thing is physical. So just go out and talk to people." Right. And he was basically, it's a very similar thing, right? Where he was like, "Right, I've got all of these people who own restaurants and food carts, but they don't know how to do their marketing and they're effectively very bad at social media." But then I've got all of these other people who are looking for new dining experiences, but they don't know where to look. So he was sort of saying, how do I connect these people in a form of a marketplace, right? Not quite, because it's mainly kind of marketing things and whatever, but people were able to pre-order their food before they go, right? And that was kind of the marketplace element of it. And the problem he got was in user acquisition. Like, how do I get how do I get chefs and restaurant owners onto the platform, and how do I get people to know about the platform? And he was struggling on that user acquisition side of things. So he hired me in to help me with that. And I said, you've got to do it physically. You've got to go out and talk to these people physically, because they're not gonna do you. If you put money ads, you don't know how those ads are going to target in a way that's going to be useful to you, but you know where all these people are. You have a whole community, you have a whole network of people who own food carts and own restaurants. Just go to them, right? Go to them and put it in their hands. And it was a very simple interface where simply a food establishment can just say, right, this is what I do. And then we went to other users in person and said, oh, if you're looking for something for date night, maybe check out, it was called Punk Foodie, right? Said, oh, if you want to go and check it out, go to this app, and the actual flyer had 2 places on it, and then the third place was download the app. And we just said, right, just flyer out, right? Because that's going to cost you like, $100 to do that. It's no big deal. Just go do it. You're going to get something. And then the moment we did that, and we went in person and we set up accounts like on behalf of people. And then we went to the users who were going to go to these food places and use that, in person. Then they started to get the first 100 people on the platform, and then it was able to kind of build some momentum from there. So, and you're saying that's essentially what you're trying to build, but in trades industry, it's very difficult industry to crack. Yeah, those people aren't very digitally aware, which is a point. And also, so yeah, go ball. Yeah, baller mode. I like that. How's it coming together? Unfortunately, the audio isn't coming through on my YouTube stream, but that's something to work out at a later date. Mhm.
Now make me a task list and create me a PDF, a JSON file of all the tasks, and create me an index, like a table of contents of where all the files are going to be. Now, so something that you've got to remember with when you're using AI, and especially for programming, is there's a context window, right? There is a memory of how much stuff you can feed it in, right? Now, anything over, like the experts are saying, like 30, 40, 50%, anything over that, if you use over that context window, it starts giving you context rot. It starts getting dumb, basically. And all the answers start becoming. That's why you might notice that if you've got if you're vibe coding and you start small, it's brilliant to start with. But as you get bigger and bigger, you change one thing and something else breaks. This is the exact reason. It's context rot. You're using too much of the context window. And so the way to fix that is to reset the context window every time. All right, so you go back to 0 again. But you go back to 0 again, and you've got to give it some help, right? You've got to give it some help. Now you want the next task. You don't want to feed it in every time. So what we do, we make a table of contents, and we say, look, this is where all my stuff about authentication sits. This is where all my stuff around AI sits. This is all the stuff around whatever sits, right? And so that way, all you're doing every time you reset, all you're doing is saying, hey, AI, look at my task list and pick one of the tasks from there. And when you finish, just tick it off. Just make it tick it off, basically. And this file here, this table of contents file, is where you can find everything. So don't bother wasting your context, your tokens, on trying to find stuff, because that's where a lot of the context goes. It's like, oh, okay, all right, he's asked me about this logo. Where does the logo sit? Let me look for the logo file. Let me look for a directory, blah, 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 blah. And by that time we've done all the searching, it's like used up a lot of context window. So that's why if you've got this table of contents files in there that link to certain bits of your app, it's going to save you on tokens. So that's what we're going to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I got the audio working as well.
What was wrong with the audio?
I was looking at my thing and I was like, how is this not working? It's so simple. And then I looked at my mic and my volume was right up because I've got my headphones plugged into my mic, and my volume was right up. And I was like, oh. And then I went to system and volume and it was right down for the system volume. And that was the problem. So I turned my mic down and turned the system volume up, and then bingo bango. We're in baller mode. That's good though. That's really good. Go back to my chat. Yeah. So yeah, industry, like when you get into industry spaces, it's going to be difficult to crack into them, right? And if nobody's cracked into them, then that's actually an opportunity for you. And what you just need is a new angle, right? So your go-to-market is everything, right? It's the make or break of your app. And that's from me running a startup consultancy for 5 years. It's the one thing I learned was your go-to-market, that's your make or break. If you don't get that right, you don't get it right. And working that out means you have to go out and say, right, how can I meet people who are tradesmen, right? People who work in labor sort of gig type work. How can I meet those people as much as possible? And how can I, where did they congregate? And I would actually think about, somewhere like a bar or pub, that's kind of a common one. My local always has a ton of people who are working trades who finish Friday and go to the pub. So you need to find like spaces like that to get into, and then once you start talking to them, just say go with a question of do you want more work? Do you want some easy work? What you're looking for.
Do you want to stop wasting all your money on missed calls when you're kind of driving and on another job? I mean, like voice agents for these guys is so valuable, man.
Well, the guy in my chat is talking about building a marketplace for tradesmen. And yeah, I've just sort of jumped in and yeah, they've mentioned it might be tough for them to crack, but I said, actually, if no one's cracked it, then that's an opportunity for you, because if you can crack it, those people are always looking for work. So try and crack it. Also try and get in the WhatsApp groups, because often people talk about it in there, and that's what I've experienced. So I hope that helps you on your journey. And the other one you said as well, exploring building a way to turn user manuals, i.e. you buy a dishwasher, into instructional videos using AI. You could prototype that pretty quickly. So I would just prototype it and see what happens. That would be an interesting one, actually.
What's that?
Like if you've got like the docs for maybe an API, right? Scan the documentation and create a lecture of how to use the API and turn it into a video.
Nice, easy content there.
Using AI. That would be good content. That would be good for like a content mill if you were into that thing. I'm not into that thing, but if you were into that thing, that would be actually a good way of creating content.
All right, what do you think? Favicon?
Yeah, do it.
All right, Favicon, and then we've got the logo here. I'm not really a big fan of this font. Let me just change the fonts. I'm not reading this font. Share my whole screen. I need it to share. So I need to get my passwords. I need to stop sharing for a sec.
Yeah, totally.
Just let me know if you see anything dodgy here.
It's so small on my screen, and on my stream I can't see anything. It's just a blur of things. And Praise.
Can you see anything?
Yeah, thanks, Dom. I appreciate your content. Are you Praise who follows me on TikTok? By the way, I think you pinged me a message at some point. Sorry if I didn't get back to you. I might have gotten back to you, but I'm always sort of busy doing stuff.
Are you still looking at my logo? Yeah, are you still looking at the logo right now?
Yeah, I can see the logo, like a gold butterfly almost. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as you can't see my Google account. Right.
While you're fiddling about with that, I'll do a bit more challenge. Yeah.
Say again.
While you're fiddling about with that, should I keep talking?
Yeah, go for
it. So yeah. If it is praise off TikTok, let me know, because yeah, I've started to build a bit of an audience, and it was quite interesting because somebody said to me that, you know, I'm doing the coaching service and that's going really well. Yesterday when I jumped off, when I had to jump off stream really quickly yesterday, and I was like, shit, I got beat. That was just talking to somebody, and I was just like, oh yeah, sure, yeah, like just pick my brains, whatever, you know, I'm happy for you to do that. That ended up turning into a very strong pitch, right? Like immediately I was like, shit, actually this person might actually buy it from me. So I was like, okay, that's cool. See how that goes. So I've got the content thing and looking to sort of deliver other services and sort of other means of sort of teaching this stuff and being able to kind of get my knowledge from, you know, 5 years running a consultancy and being a product manager into the world. But somebody did say to me, who is a social media and content marketer, who actually said to me, you should think about becoming a content creator. And I was like, nah, that's ridiculous. But as I go on creating content, I'm like, I kind of see what she's saying. I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. So, you know, I might actually like run like an online clinic and people just bring me their ideas and I just talk about what I think they should do from a point of view of a product manager, like an open clinic. See how that goes. That might be useful. And also, so I could do that on TikTok Live, actually. That would be a good one for TikTok Live. So come along, bring me your problems, bring me your ideas, and I'll talk about like, this is what I would approach for in terms of go-to-market and things you have to be aware of. And yeah, also just doing content creation. I'm going to start creating YouTube videos as well. Just doing lectures, like a bit like what I just did at the top of the stream. Praise, I think you should do it on TikTok Live. Okay, well, there we go. The open clinic. I might pick a day and just do it consistently, like once a week, and say, right, this is the ideas clinic. Come along, tell me what you want. And as somebody with 10 years knowledge and products, I'll tell you what my thoughts are, and that might help you on your way. But yeah, I'm going to start create like at the top of the stream where I did the presentation. I'm just going to do a thing like that, which is like 10 minutes long, and just go, right, okay, I'm just going to talk about this one thing and get that out there, which would be a very light touch. I do very much in-depth webinars, but they're for my paid clients, so I can't really give those away for free. They're really in-depth and really detailed. There's a lot of detail going on in those ones. But yeah, I can still think, you know, in terms of the content creation, I can do those things. So, but thank you, Praise. I will indeed consider doing that open clinic. So yeah. How's the app coming along?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get some credentials, mate.
Okay, cool. Cool. But I think we actually had quite an interesting chat. You know, I think and as a whole, like even if we might not get to an end result, I think the pieces here were actually really interesting. Like going from doing that initial user research,
Yeah.
yeah, going for that initial user research and getting into those details, and then you were like, "Oh, actually, I relate to that." And then when I asked questions about it, it suddenly revealed these other things where it's like, this is where the opportunity to build a product is. There was a definite pain point. There's a definite piece of friction for you, and it's like, right, okay, well then, how do I meet that pain point and friction in a way that I can put something in your hands? And that's what I do. And I, you know, that one little bit we did there, like when I worked for like the unicorn startups, like I would do 40 or 50 of those simultaneously, like constantly putting stuff in people's hands like mad. And then the moment something clicked, I was like, right, that's the thing we focus on. Ditch everything else. Just focus on that thing. And then people end up, being in a situation where they're like, yeah, cool, that makes sense to me. I'm going to adopt that now. But then by making that the keystone problem, you are then able to deliver all the other stuff around it, which is a good way of approaching your user experience. Which again, like we were talking about, like, you know, people can fall in this trap of painting the UI. Like that's what it comes from. You know, you don't know the keystone problem. So you end up just filling the space. And it's like, that's not the point. You know, start with the keystone problem, work out what that thing is, and then focus on that. But yeah. I think for a first time stream, no. I think we got something out, which is good. It may have been a little bit rough around the edges. But
Yeah, it's fucking true. Shit, man. I think yeah, again, time blindness. Like, yeah, we could do it in 2 hours, do the whole fucking product. Let's phone the customer up.
Yeah, that's why I was like, let's kind of keep it as slim as possible. Praise, there is a site that lets people run communities. I can see that being useful for you. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking, just doing a paid community, right? And saying, look, you know, sign up, get a weekly webinar, get a space where you can talk to other future founders, and also, you know, I can maybe start to do the clinic for free, and then I might do like a free clinic on a Thursday, but then I do the paid community clinic on a Friday, and just sit and go through it all, and then like I just smash all that stuff out over like a couple of hours where people can come in and do that stuff. So that might be it.
Listen, let's just make it half valuable. Shall we just try and knock up a landing page?
Yeah, sure.
And let's get a sign up on there. All right, so let's create a landing page with Claude, shall we? No, Claude, where are you?
I guess the other way around I could do it as well is just like do the Patreon model, right? And sort of like you pay £5 to be a patron of mine, and then all I do is do the webinars, do the open clinic, do a bit to one-to-one. Praise, my mate is building an AI tool for insurance companies to handle claims. That'd be a good one. I've never actually saying that. I've never talked to insurance people, so I don't know. I think this is the beauty of LLMs. Like, it's opened up a whole raft of new products where it's like, oh, the barrier that we always had. Oh, that's an interesting problem. Praise. Essentially, a lot of people can use AI to fake claims. So using a means to scan to see what is the validity of this claim. That's a very interesting problem to solve, actually. Do you know, that's also an interesting thing, right? Where like as much as AI is creating problem, solves problems, it also creates a bunch of problems as well. And I find this on Upwork, where like I used to get a lot of work off Upwork, and then I stopped because it was just getting annoying. But the problem was that a lot of people were saying, yeah, please share his LinkedIn with me. And part of the problem that I found on Upwork was that so many people were just using AI to put their proposals through. And you were just like, right, okay, they're saying they're doing all this thing, but the proposal is generated from the post, right? The ad that I put up. And then I get talking to them and I'm like, you don't know any of this stuff. Like, you don't have no idea what I'm asking you to do. And it's like, right, okay, well, thanks for wasting my time. See you later. And a lot of people have reported that from what's it, Duda? A lot of people have said that from Upwork and other places like that. So actually by building a tool to sort of say, look, like, is this person legit? I think in some cases there'll be some. I'm going to be part of my. I was going to put this in my predictions, but I didn't put it in there because I'm not 100% on it. When if I'm like 75%, I then put it into my list of predictions. But I'm at like 50%. But I think a lot of these spaces will end up going the other direction and being more human powered, because that's what people are going to look out for. Is there's too much coming out from AI and it's misleading to the person behind it. So, and the important part is that the person that we're talking to is who they say they are. And I had this because I'm head of product of another startup called Tamway, and we do hiring people out of Africa around the world. So software developers, engineers, designers, product managers, project managers, UX folks, right? All out of Africa, hugely talented people, like insanely talented people. And they're not able to get the work outside. And the part of the problem is that there's trepidation of hiring people from Africa because there's this sentiment and misconception and stereotype that, a lot of these people are scammers, right? And part of it is that, well, if that's the trepidation, right, and that's the pain point, then I need to have some form of validating that this person is who they say they are, right? And that their training is legit. Because one thing I found out when I was talking to folks in Nigeria was, like, literally anybody, like a university is like a shed out the back of someone's garden, right? And they're just pumping out diplomas. So people would go, yeah, I've got a diploma from the University of blah, blah, blah. And, I can do this thing. But it turns out, yeah, it's just some guy's garage, right? it's like, that's part of the problem. So we had to do this verification step. And the first customer that I got in front of, and we sat down and we talked about, she was really interested in hiring people from Africa. She had done it previously before, but she was kind of hamstrung by the amount of work she had to do. And we were sort of saying, well, we can do all that work in the background for you. And she sort of said, like, I need to make sure people are legit because, one, there is generally the trepidation from stereotyping, but also there's a point where it's kind of like, unfortunately, there's bits of that is actually quite true. So I do need to kind of have the verification. And my one of the co-founders said, oh, we can do it with AI. And she said, if you do it with AI, I'm not paying you a penny. And I was like, interesting. Tell me about that.
Wow.
And she was like, the problem is that they're always going to be 2 steps ahead of you on the AI to fake it, throughout the whole thing, right? And all you're going to be doing is just developing this AI system to try and get ahead of them, and they'll always be 2 steps ahead. And they were like, that's what I don't want. So I said, okay, cool. I'm going to put a team together, and it was 3 people, and they're going to go to every single freelancer on the platform, and they're going to verify who they are. They're going to validate all of their credentials, and they're going to verify that they have an ability to do the job they're saying they're going to do. And the moment I put that in there, we start getting customers through the door, and people were like, cool, thank you. And they can go see who was the person who did that work at Tamway and say, oh, that's so-and-so, cool. And we would actually enforce a meeting with the validator, with the client. Even if they weren't paying, we would just say, talk to this person because they're your validator. And once they had that touch point, they were like, okay, cool. I'm at least happy that they're taking that work on and that they're making sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And that led to this place where, yeah, users came in, people start paying us for the platform. And yeah, that's what it is. So yeah, that's an interesting space. I think there will be more human-centric things pop up as a response to AI. Like AI will do good things, but it also creates problems, and sometimes those problems are going to be solved by real human interactions. That's my prediction, but I'm only 50% on it. So yeah. How
Yeah, I
you
reckon
getting
people
on?
are
Sorry, I'm
gonna,
just
you're
chatting
going to
bollocks.
start paying people for to have a walk with you.
Sorry.
I mean, Gary Vee talks about how, you know, there's going to be in the future, he sees this, it's going to be like a high value, you know, person to person,
Yeah.
like just going for a walk with someone.
Yeah. Absolutely. But that's how culture works, right? You go one way, and then everything goes really deep one way, and then it just bounces to the other direction. You know, and we've seen it throughout history. So it's like, well, what does that bounce back look like, and how can you capitalize on it? You know, with Tamway, I did it with the verification thing, but there's also loads of other opportunities out there where you can say, actually, there is a human element that's going to be important. I reckon that, again, this is me speculating. I wrote a whole post about this, and a lot of people reacted to it in a very, very interesting way, where I said, people are saying social media is dead, but they're saying it's dead because there's too many bots on it. And I reckon there's going to be a fully human-centric social media that has the opportunity to blow up, because that's what people want. And I said, you know what? Part of that is that I'm starting to think that Substack is starting to fill that space where they're like,
Oh, really?
yeah, people are really gravitating towards that Substack. I mean, Substack's been around for about 8 years, I think, and they've just been like very gently, you know, on the surface, kind of having a thing. And over the past sort of year, they've massively ramped up in the amount of users that they've acquired. But it has nothing to do with their marketing efforts. It was simply because people started going like, actually, I'm going to put a lot of my content on Substack because then they know it's from me.
Yeah.
And then that's what people wanted. And I was like, interesting, real interesting.
And what do you mean they know it's from you?
So yeah, there's a bit more of a human connection with Substack, and I think that's why TikTok does really well, as opposed to, like, you know, spaces like that are, you know, Instagram are sort of pushing more of the sort of AI, and same with Twitter. It's just full of bots. People are gravitating to these spaces because it's like, oh, I can see Dom on stream talking about a thing. I can see Dill on stream talking about a thing and doing a thing. This is real, right? And that's what I want. But what I don't want is an AI bot telling me how to do something, because I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care I want to know who you are, you know? And that's what's happening over on Instagram quite a bit. It's a lot of AI content being generated, and YouTube as well. And YouTube came out to say, we actually need to crack down on this. I was like, interesting that a company that's put in, what was it, $500 billion towards AI is turning around saying, we're going to crack down on AI content on our on our platform. It's like, really? Oh, really? I wonder why that is. People like people. It's always a fundamental rule I always go back to. People like people. That's it. And once you kind of get to that place, where does AI exceed and where does AI fail, kind of tells you a lot. You know, I think a lot of people are a little bit too over AI optimistic and think that AI is going to take over everything. It's not. It's just not, because people like people. And now what Substack does, right? People write on there. People are when people use an LLM to write stuff on Substack, it's really obvious because everybody else is writing in a really human way. So it sticks out like a sore thumb, and people are like, that's AI, don't read that.
It's true, man. Even on LinkedIn, I can just see the smoothness of those paragraphs. I'm thinking that AI skipped straight past.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it, right? And that's again what I'm talking about, like with AI generated content, is that not only posts but comments, right? Just absolute AI slop, and you're just like, well, what's the point, right? And everyone's just skipping past it and being like, this is awful. And then this is what's kind of a curiosity about LinkedIn. It's brought together this community of like weird LinkedIners who are like hyper weird, and they're doing it in a way that's like, we're just here to stand out because we know people are going to engage with our content if we're a bit weird, because that's something that an AI can't do, is like be weird in a really specific way. And I was like, that's why that community is sort of starting to grow now. And yeah, I think that's it. That's your sentiment right there is what I'm seeing over a lot of social media platforms. Anyway, how is the app coming along?
It's there, man. It's almost there. Fucking, I just got to get Google verified.
Holy shit.
Being given access to the app currently being tested. You should continue. Yeah. Continue. Refresh brain.
I don't know if my glasses are like wonky or my head is wonky.
Yay! It fucking works.
Get in. How do I log in? Oh, have you gone to production?
Yeah.
Shit, the
shit,
bed.
works.
Chuck us a URL.
Oh no, I haven't put it on production yet. It's
Oh,
just works
okay.
on all right, let me get this repoed up and then we can do that. All right. ADHD assistant. Okay, so now we're just going to commit this code.
Nice.
So git push, and then we're going to
looks like there's a bit of drama down the road next to my house. Someone's dropping off a skip and somebody's trying to get past and they can't get past, but it traps them in that road. So it's like, oh, you're boned, mate. You're going to be sat there for the next 20 minutes.
I'll make this private. I'm sure.
On the subject of LinkedIn, let's check out what's going on in the old Linky Dinks.
Linky Dinkinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Push. It's better. All right, so that's pushed it up. We've committed the files. Now let's go to notify. What's up?
My fuck LinkedIn post is up to 500 impressions, and I've got 8 engagements currently and 2 comments. Well, one of the comments is mine. Octavian would just put a comment saying, "Lol, didn't know." Ha. I got a whole bunch of folks that are just like, what? Yeah, forget that. I'm doing YouTube all the way. It's amazing that I got up and running on YouTube just by doing it all in the browser, and yet LinkedIn just crapped out on me. So yeah, late is LinkedIn.
Latest potatoes.
It just is kind of funny that I was posting the other day, like every feature feels like 75% done, and it's just such an example of that. Of like, right, you messed that up. Then well done. Thanks for that.
Oh shit! So we're going to go baller mode, aren't we? Baller mode.
Oh, the guy on that street's getting mad as shit now.
All right, go into public directory. I've added the logo and the fav icon. Update it. Use your. You don't have any design skills right now. Right, so deploys. Try that. Zoom, Zoom is fucking shit with the UI as well, man. All these big dogs, they're all fucking shit with their UI, I tell you.
Honestly, I generally fell out of love with Zoom. Like back in the day, it was sick, right?
Mm.
And it was great. And then it just became such a mess of them just putting a bunch of features in, and you were like, can you calm down a little bit?
You know, I fucking really impressed that it did the fucking whole of that. Where's my task list? Let me see. I mean, I've got a new framework that I'm using. Kind of, I've been learning from Ralph and all the other guys.
Yeah.
I just create my own kind of slimmed down version, and for this small thing, it fucking worked.
Okay,
Perfectly.
I'm gonna. So I've just
Very
opened up the link now. Okay,
Yeah.
I am gonna share that. Cool. Let me just sort of separate out my things. Okay, yeah, I can see it. I can see. I'll do your audio. Hang on 2 seconds. Sorry. Let's do that again. Oh no, I need to share system audio. Okay, yeah, maybe that's what went a little bit awry. Let's go entire screen and go with this one. Hit share. Okay, cool. Right. Okay. All right. Sorry, folks. Bit of a mess, but let's move that one over to my second screen. So let's put that here, like so. I thought I'd close my Figma. I did not. And put you here. So I've got the app open, which is exciting. No, I'm not sharing it on Zoom. No. Do you want me to? Share. Desktop one. Share. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. How do I move this thing? I want to move this thing. Oh God, my God. Zoom. State of view. Look at the size of this bar that Zoom has now. It used to be like 4 things, and now it's just like audio, video, participants, chat, share, pause. Pause. What's pause? Layout, annotate, slide control, show meeting. And then there's a more button. Record transcript, disable annotation for others, hide names and annotate. Oh my God. State of it. State of it. Anyway, right. Connect Google. Let's do this thing. Oh, I got an error. Yeah. I got me an authorization error. I was going to say it's an OAuth 2. Oh, whoops. I did not mean to do that. Did not mean to do that. History. Okay. Let's do a hard refresh. No, that's the wrong button. Is it Control and Shift and? Yeah, I think it's Shift and. Okay, cool. Right. Oh, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. Hang on. I don't think it's done a hard. Is it Alt? Is it Alt that does it? Shift Command R. Okay. Nah, error blocked again. Client ID missing client required parameter client underscore ID. Ugh, when do you need to pick the kids up? Ah. Oh. It's always the boring stuff. So it's that last little bit that gets you, right? I was in a call the other day, right? And there was a bunch of people who were founders, and the guy had put this call on of like, oh yeah, AI Finders come together and chat or whatever. And it was obviously just put the event on to get clients, right? And I was like, yeah, whatever. I mean, I'm here to find clients as well. So, you know, cheers very much. But a bit of a disappointment for you that I'm way more charismatic on the call than you are, because they're going to gravitate towards me. 3 people reached out to me from that event, funnily enough. And so I jumped in, and he was sort of selling his services, like, oh yeah, we use AI with our team, you know, blah blah blah. And one guy who's in cybersecurity said, you know, I really wouldn't be too involved in worrying about AI when it comes to this specific kind of thing that you're doing, right? Because you can, you know, what you're trying to capture has got security concerns, and this is the worry. And he kind of sat there and he said, like, oh yeah, no, absolutely. You know, what we do is we get 90% of the way there and all this, like. And then I piped up and said, yeah, getting 90% of the way there was never the problem. It was always the last 10%. And everybody started reacting, just be like, yep. It's like, yeah, it's always the last 10%. That's the bit that gets you. Okay. Command Shift R. Shazam. Connect Google. Choose an account. Access blocked. OpenClaw has not completed the Google verification process. The app is currently being tested and can only be accessed by developer-approved testers. If you think you should have access, contact the developer. If you're an developer of OpenClaw, see error details. No, I've got no buttons. Should we call it there? Okay. Right. I know it's something that you can get in your hands, right? So it'd be interesting to see, you know, save the web page to your phone and see how you feel about it, you know. And maybe you sort of work on this for the next, you know, you kind of see how it feels for the next couple of weeks, and then we talk about it in another stream. Or maybe we talk about it in another stream in a week's time and say, like, well, how do you feel about it? Like, how did you react to it? You know, how did you respond to it? How did it change you as a person? And get into those things. But I think going from yeah. 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 Mm. Yeah. But I think for the last 2.5 hours that we've been streaming, right? We've had a presentation. We went through user research. We pulled out a persona. We did a user interview, right? Where we went through the persona and talked to you about your pain points, and you know, I talked questions that got into the details. I think maybe I might clip just that bit where we're talking, right? Because I think that's actually really interesting for people when it comes to user interviews. But then we got to a point where we were like, well, let's just sort of scribble on screen and see what we can come up with. And then we had a product, right? And I think that entire flow of not trying to get to a point where we build something ultimately very functional and very polished and very thin, but like that stuff, we're not going to get that done in 2 hours. But what we did in 2.5 hours, we actually went from nothing to something. And I think that's actually a really good story to tell. So yeah, no, still fine. Still fine. I think we still have something. And maybe, I would say we do this again, maybe in a couple of weeks, and we'll pick a persona of somebody that both of us aren't, and kind of skip over the user interview bit and just sort of say, okay, well, let's get involved and see where we're at and see where we can get to a point where we can get a product out and get it in front of people and see what happens. Because we didn't really do any of the go-to-market stuff in this one, so it'd be quite nice to do the go-to-market stuff in another one. And maybe we pick one like the retro gamers or the the photography people. Like pick a hobby, find a pain point, go into the subreddit, start doing posts and see what happens, and start reaching out to people and see if we can get some traction there. Use the live stream itself as a way of promoting, as a means of go-to-market. And then once we hit that pain point and we start delivering that value, then we can kind of say, right, let's just build a thing and get something out into the world and do something small. And again, we're trying to search out that keystone problem, like get to that point, figure out the keystone problem, see if an experiment. And it's not that we're going to get it right first time. It's just the experiment that goes out to see, well, is this it? We will learn very quickly if it is or not. And then it just means we know to move to something else. Right. But it starts the conversation, right? The conversation starts with something's in your hands. The analogy I always use is you kind of don't really know exactly how you're going to decorate a room until you start decorating the room. Right. And then you kind of get to that point of like, oh, yeah, that dresser doesn't make sense over there. And that set of drawers doesn't make sense over there. And that rug should, that rug, yeah, that is perfect to go in there. Only then does it kind of make sense. And it's kind of the same with products. Like once you get it in people's hands, then they have the tangible vocabulary to tell you, okay, this is where I need to go with it. But I think in terms of 2.5 hours, going from nothing to a product is actually a good thing to do in 2.5 hours. How do you feel about it? Mm. Mm. How did you feel like being a respondent? This is a question I don't get to ask. Like, how do you feel being a respondent in a user interview? Yeah, it is a bit. Yeah, I get that. But how did you in terms of the questions I were asking, did you feel very connected to those questions? Did you feel really? Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of my main rule when it comes to doing user interviews is never talk about the product. And I'm always trying to abstract away from what you think the solution is. And this comes to a point of view that when I mentor a lot of new product managers, like what I say to them is, when you ask somebody a question, they will answer that question in a way that meets the expectations of the person who asks it. So there has been a situation where you've been asked the same question from 2 different people and you've given 2 different answers. That's not that you're lying to one of them. It's just that you're a human being and you meet their expectations. That's how we communicate as human beings. And, if you have a question of how are you doing, that's very different from your neighbor than it is from your therapist, right? That's a very different answer that you're going to give, but that's what it is. So when you talk about the product and you start asking questions that is in the realm of the product, what ends up happening is people will give you an answer in the form of a solution, but that doesn't tell you anything, right? So as you started to kind of talk and get into, well, actually what I want is this, it's like, I don't, that's not what I'm trying to get to. What I'm trying to get to is the core of it. And I think the question that really unlocked it was when I said to you, if a calendar was a person, what makes you punch it in the face? And then you immediately felt exactly the feeling that you had towards it. And that was like, okay, I can hang off of that because I bet there's a lot of other people who feel the exact same way. Don't tell me what the fuck to do. So that's kind of my way of I've done thousands of user interviews, by the way. Like, I've done so many. Yeah. And that's the thing. Once you get to that place of like deep down, like it's not just a feature. Like that's what you do. Your calendar is not your boss. Be your own boss. Yeah, baller mode. That's how you connect with people. That's how you evangelize your product. Your calendar is not your boss, right? And very often when I talk to my clients, I always phrase it as you're the next generation of innovators. Why should it be a billionaire? Right? And immediately people connect with it. And they're like, yeah, why does Elon Musk get to build everything? Why can't I build something? I got into this game to build things. So yeah, be the next generation of innovator. And then I go in and pitch my products and then they get it. So that's part of it. So yeah, I think that might be useful for people. I'm going to cut that up actually and see what comes from that. But yeah, I definitely feel like that was good. But I feel like that whole 2.5 hours we did a lot in 2.5 hours, just to be clear, like a lot. Should we say in a couple of weeks' time we will do a nighttime stream and yeah, I'll do a bit more of getting out and doing the promo for it. It'll be good actually if either today or tomorrow we lock in a time so that I can do a lot more promo, because I literally did like 3 posts and I just gave a little ping in some WhatsApp groups. But if I've got a couple of weeks, then at least I can push that a little bit further. Yeah. Right. Should we end it there? Yeah, same here. I'll share over a Google. Are you on Google Workspace as well? Okay, I'll create a shared folder and I'll put all the resources in there, and then we can work in there. And I think this is actually quite a good bit of content. So I think if we clip this up, I reckon we've easily got maybe like a ton of content in this. I'll also I'll let you go. I'll drop you a voice message, but I've got a flow that might be useful to you. Okay, cool. All right, see you in a bit. Bye. Okay, for my viewers, I hope you enjoyed that. That was 2.5 hours, and it was. Let me sort out my stream. Let's get that sharing. Okay. So for my viewers, yes, that was 2.5 hours, and we went from nothing to a product. And it's not that this product is going to be the next billion-dollar startup, right? This is all the process that I'm trying to communicate to folks who are software developers trying to become engineers, trying to become founders, right? You're a software developer or an engineer, you're trying to become a founder. You have to get into this habit of going, right, well, how do I go from a pain point? How do I go and discover that? How do I do ideation? And how do I get to a product? And the moment you put things in people's hands, then you start getting the good information back. And even if you build something and you try and put it in someone's hands and they go, no, I don't want this, that in itself tells you something, right? That tells you that the thing that you're trying to connect them with isn't really communicating in a way that makes sense. So this is something that, like we said, we're going to do again, and we're going to stream again, and we're going to, maybe this might be just a regular thing, right? We just sort of come on stream, we do the user research, we figure out a pain point, we then do some ideation, we then get to a point of figuring out what do we build, and then we just build it. And we just go ahead, we build it, we put it together, and we might have a bit more structure over it where we can kind of define the parameters of what is it we're trying to do. But once we get into that space of ideation, then we can kind of build something. And then once we can do the go-to-market at the same time. So the original intention was that Dill was going to do all the vibe coding, and then I was going to do all the go-to-market in the background. And we will use the stream itself as a means of go-to-market and see if we can actually connect with people at a level that makes sense, but to get to a product that people can sign up to at the end of the stream, right? So at the end of the stream, that's the goal. People can go, oh, you built this thing. I'm going to log in and I'm going to start using it. So if anyone's got any questions, then please do ask. Please do come ahead and sort of say where you're at and what you want to do. If there's anything you want to ask me, stick it in the chat. I'm going to finish my coffee and then I'm going to go eat something because I'm hungry. Okay, no. Right, praise. I'm glad that I could help. If you're still here, I'm glad I could help with that stuff. Let me know if you are praise, who I know on TikTok as well. But apart from that, I'm going to end the stream now. And so I was quietly quite impressed with YouTube streaming from the browser. I'm going to be honest about that. A few niggles, but that was mainly skill issues. So yeah, there we go. Right. I'm going to go. Right. Everyone's gone. Cool. Right. See you later. Bye.